Welcome, Mitch Shepard, to the Empathy Edge podcast. Oh my gosh, I want to fangirl you for a little bit because I have been following you / stalking you on LinkedIn for a while. And we were just talking about, I don't even know how we were connected. And I think we connected the dots back and figured out how. But your work and your voice and your message on LinkedIn about everything from leadership to, inequality for women to toxic masculinity. Like, we're going to kind of go in a billion different directions today, and I love it. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. And honestly, my favorite kind of podcast is where I have no idea where we're going. I have no idea what you're asking me because it's just so much more fun. I just showed up. I did blow dry my hair.
Amazing.
This looks great. This is not a common
I did not, occurrence. Which is why I'm wearing my did not wash my hair hat. Yeah.
But I'm really happy to be here.
I'm so happy to have you. Okay. So, we heard your bio and your very, impressive credentials and the work that you do as a leadership coach, but tell us how you got to that work. Tell us a little bit about your story.
Yeah. Okay. It's a long one as is often the case, but I'm going to give you kind of some of the highlights that led me to where I'm at. So first, where am I? I'm in Seattle. I've been an executive coach and a consultant and a truth teller for years. I am a mom and a wife. I've got a 15-year-old son, an 19-year-old daughter who just went off to college. And now let me sort of back up. So I got my start. I thought I was going to be an accountant. I went to UCSB, studied business economics and accounting. I love a good problem. I love math. I love business. I love money. There's a part of me that is all business, right? On the side, I did this adventure programs as a volunteer, mostly because I wanted to go on these outrageously fun outdoor trips, and ended up just completely falling in love with that. Instead of going and being a CPA, I went and became an Outward Bound instructor for 10 years.
Wow.
And I led wilderness expeditions all over the country with all kinds of groups, from teenagers to corporate executives to people going through major life transitions. And I didn't know the words diversity, equity, inclusion. I didn't know the word coach even, besides off a court. I didn't know there were people who had professional jobs facilitating conversations, facilitating personal growth, coaching people to be the best version of themselves, right? But what kind of clued me in is that some of the courses I led, one in particular was called DCLF, Denver Community Leadership Forum. I don't know if it still exists. But part of this 2-year program was that they would bring leaders from all over the Denver metropolitan area, from nonprofit, government, public, private, educational institutions, to solve Denver's toughest problems. And that was a moment of wow, this is powerful stuff. Because so we would take these leaders out into the mountains where most of them are pretty uncomfortable. And we would watch the way that they built trust, connection, empathy, right? Just the bonds that they would build would then accelerate their problem solving abilities, right? And I just fell in love with that model of deep humanity, fear, discomfort, big problems that are hard to solve, that the outdoors was like a really nice level playing field.
Yeah.
So anyway, spent a decade doing that. Then was like, wow, I'd really like to have a permanent address and a family of my own and not throw everything in my car and move every 4 months. And so I settled down in Seattle for grad school and never left. Met my husband, got a master's in behavioral science, and jumped from the outdoor facilitating coaching space
to the boardroom,
over into the from the great outdoors to the great indoors,
right.
And, but never lost my sense of adventure. So after about 15 years of that, building that business from scratch and hiring different consultants and growing it. When Brad and I first met, we had this dream of traveling the world. Before we even had kids, before we were even engaged, one of the things that really bonded us was, wouldn't it be great if? And it was, we call it Dream Day, even to this day. And we talked about, wouldn't it be great if we could take our kids around the world someday, if we could expose them to other cultures? We both deeply believe that wherever you go, people are people.
Right.
And we both deeply believe that there's just the best way to learn is by just falling in love with people all over the world.
And it's the best way to learn empathy as well, is being exposed to different people And different
so,
lifestyles. Yeah.
so much. And so we did that trip. We did that trip, thankfully, right before COVID. We left in summer of June 2018, got back June 2019.
Oh my gosh.
24 countries, 6 continents, the most incredible life enriching experience. And we didn't stick to just like the safe and easy places, right? Like, well, all the places were safe, but you know, we were trekking in Nepal, we were volunteering in Rwanda, we were in some pretty off the beaten track places around the world. And having spent the prior 15 years in corporate spaces where people really, you know, international companies with a lot of melding cultures in one place, like I'd coached Israelis, I'd coached people from India, China, Japan, Australia, Prague, France, right? Now we're in these places and I'm learning their cultures and customs. And I have this moment where I think, wow, how much of these people that work in the US, like how much they have to like shut off parts of themselves to be successful here and how painful that must be. Because when you're in their world, like you're the one adapting. And I find that beautiful. I love to learn and I love to adapt and I love to be curious about that. But so when I came back, I just had a passion even deeper than the well of passion I left with to build spaces that truly honored and valued what people bring to the table. And some of that is the cultural stuff, right? Like one of the teams I worked with at Amazon years ago was a website application platform team. And, you know, they have to build different versions of their website and different look and feel and different cultural standards, like all over the globe to be successful. And so this room I was in was filled with people from every country you can imagine and leading them through these exercises where they were able to share the ways in which their culture informs the business decisions was just amazing. So anyway, that's kind of what I do. Then long story short, I got cancer shortly after COVID. And I don't know how else to say it except that it just eviscerated my filter. It did. I don't know what happened. Part of it might be the estrogen drop, like when you go through chemo. Truly, I mean, there's science to this. Like estrogen's the thing that makes us nice. And like chemo just shut my estrogen down. And suddenly I had like this sub-zero tolerance for bullshit. And I started, and I'm a writer, right? So I'm a writer. I write. And so through cancer, I just wrote so honestly about my experiences. I have a blog on Medium where I just wrote about this journey of just becoming more of who I was. And that's how you found me on LinkedIn, because I never used to post things like that. If you look back at LinkedIn, I mean, it's probably been maybe 18 months that I've actually been honest and said what's real and decided to put honesty and transparency above my own business success, my own safety, my own likability. Like there are plenty of people who are like, whoa, who I'm sure think, oh, whoa, she's really like tripped off the deep end over here. Like who did Mitch become?
I will share with you, and I don't know if you know this about my background, but while I was I joke around that we moved back to Seattle for 4.5 years so I could have a near fatal brain aneurysm and recover from that. And so I get it. Well, number one, mine is cognitive of like my filter got broken.
Like
literally. And I've learned strategies obviously to deal with it, but I think there's also something about when you face a medical illness or any kind of challenge like that, not that I got all Zen-like in the moment. I was dealing with my own recovery and just trying to, like walk my dog every day. Like that was where I was at. I wasn't some guru, but I wrote a memoir about that experience called Rebooting My Brain. And I think that from that experience, I can't imagine. I started my business after being in corporate for most of my career, shortly before that happened, like the year that happened.
Wow.
And thank God I didn't have a hierarchical, politically charged organization to go back to. And I was running my own show because, to your point, there's nothing left to lose. Right. No. And it's just, I'm going to say things the way I say things. I'm going to show tough love to my clients. And if they don't like it, they're not the right clients. Like, you know what I mean? So I think there's something about going through those profound, those life interrupters that you start to realize that, what are you doing? Like, what are we doing masking this? What are we doing trying to hide who we are? Not that I'm perfect at it every day. I still code switch when required. I still have insecurities, but probably like you. But you just get this recharge, like, I don't want to put up with the bullshit anymore. And I think that, your story is so relevant to the work you do because you have this lens of helping leaders embrace who they really are on the inside. And that's what we talk about when we talk about authenticity. It doesn't mean coming to work in your pajamas. It just means saying the things that need to be said and doing the things that need to be done. But, with my work, there's a way to do that where you're not causing harm to other people. So there might be some ways to communicate your truth in a way where you're considering your audience, right? And considering the impact on your audience. And I hate when people say that those two things are mutually exclusive. I hate anybody that has sort of binary leadership thinking, but being who you really are and also holding space for what someone else's perspective and experience and feelings might be, we could do both. We're smart beings. And it doesn't mean we acquiesce to them. It just means maybe we adapt the way we communicate. Maybe we soften our language a little bit. Maybe we find better timing to have the conversation. There's these little tweaks we can make and still be authentically us. And so I'm wondering, from your work with leaders and given your amazing experience, which thank you for sharing that. And side note, we need to have an offline conversation about how can I make that possible to travel the world with my son, because that's a dream of mine. But what do you find the biggest obstacles? Maybe there's not one, to leaders who don't have a life-altering experience like we did, to just finally get in the game and just show up as who they are and play to the strengths, while also understanding their strengths might have shadow sides they need to manage and navigate. Mm-hmm. But what do you think is getting in the way? Is it corporate culture? Is it programming? Is it society? Is it their own insecurity? Like, what do you see as the biggest obstacles and then breakthroughs of your clients to be who they really are and lead as who they really are?
Yeah.
That's a lot of questions in there, but
it's okay.
The one that resonates. Yeah.
I've got stories on this. So first of all, I think the very first thing is that when people realize their natural, authentic gifts, talents, ways of looking at the world, expertise is actually of value to accelerate towards the goal that the business has. That is first. It is. Because otherwise it's real hard to talk yourself into, I should show up as me, if showing up as you is not proving to be effective, right? So that's honestly thing one. But it takes a while a lot of times when I'm coaching someone and I'm digging into what those unique gifts are and how do they know and what's their evidence. Okay, so example. I was coaching a guy at Microsoft years ago. He's now retired, but he was kind of this person I coached from director, senior director, GM to finally VP to finally CVP, right? Over this course of a decade, off and on. And I will never forget the strength of character that he had around midway in this decade of coaching him on and off. I did this interview-based 360 for him. Because you asked this question, is it culture? Is it personal narrative? Is it this? Is it that? And I would just simply say, yes. Yes. It's all of that, right?
Yeah.
And even the culture, there's the wider culture in, say, the States or any other country or region. But there's also company culture. And at the time, Microsoft, this changed a lot since then, but at the time, it was a very cutthroat culture. It was like on the heels of Gates and Balmer, and Balmer was actually still there, but where it was perfectly appropriate to call people an idiot in a meeting and pound your fist on the table. And that was seen as good leadership. And so
it's why my husband left. He was there under the Balmer regime and it sucked his soul. Like I had never seen him so downtrodden, and he was doing good work and getting good reviews, but it was terrible.
And this is why you'll love this, right? Like, this is a person who grew in place, who stayed true to themselves in place. Okay. So I bring this feedback back to him. So what I did do when I do these is I interview 10 or 12 folks who work closely with this leader, up, across, down, all around, partners, etc. And then I curate that feedback. And I love doing it this way because I like people to use their own language. Their own. Like, it's not some assessment you can easily throw on a shelf. It's tell me about this person. Right. For better or worse, best strengths, talents, attributes. What should they shift or change? What difference will it make if they do? What's the impact when they show up like this? What would it look like if they showed up like that? What does it look like if they show up in the way you're saying that they should? And in this case, people said consistently, he needs to be bigger in the room. He needs to show up stronger. He needs to, like, one person actually said it would be good for him if he could just pound his hand on the table from time to time, like the rest of us do, because right now he's just getting like leveled. Essentially, he didn't use the word leveled.
Right.
So when I went back to my client who prides himself, he knows who he is. He knows. I
just want to say that's really interesting of a male executive.
It is, and
that they were asking him to be bigger. Yeah, interesting.
Oh, right. Yeah. I know. Well, meaning like women get told that all the time. Like you gotta speak up. And then when they speak up, it's like,
they get slapped down. Yeah, exactly.
You're intimidating. You're, people fear you. You're never going to get promoted if you're not likable, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
But in this case, so when I gave him that feedback, he's a person, he's very highly emotionally intelligent, really cares a lot about growth and doing the right thing. And he heard all the feedback, so much of it, he's like, oh, good point, good point. And I get to that part, like people think you can be bigger, stronger, And he's like, nope. He's like, that's where I draw the line. No. And I just looked at him and I was like, congratulations.
I love him.
Me too. Me too. I mean, still to this day, we're friends. Now he's retired, but
yeah,
because that's it. Right. And I think in this climate we're in right now, unfortunately, that environment we talked about became unfashionable.
Right.
Now it's back in fashion in our workplaces. This strength by power over, this more autocratic style, this more like,
even though the data and research all show us that leading with empathy and curiosity and emotional regulation and intelligence actually yields better bottom line results. It's like,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And so back to the bottom line results.
Yeah.
So why did this guy succeed as an outlier in that environment? Because he was killing it at results. His team had the highest organizational scores, on the engagement. He hit his results time and time again. He shined above the rest.
Right.
And so you don't get to be an outlier in your behavior if your results suck, right? You get to be an outlier and you get to be confident in yourself and in your authenticity when it contributes to the thing everyone would agree they want, which is this goal to be met, right?
Right. That's
why this thing about authenticity, have empathy for everyone is like important, but it has to be in when a workplace especially, it has to be in the context of the business results. Like, why is empathy have a return on investment? Right. And why does authenticity have a return on investment? Because let's talk about women for a sec. Someone comes in, like I have another story, this female partner at a very conservative, mostly white, predominantly male law firm. The partner level was like all white men and 2 white women, one of whom I was in this conference with, where we were invited to be in the room with all men intentionally, because it was about men essentially becoming more evolved, inclusive men in their workplaces. Well, there's this panel of 3 men up there, and she stands up. Her and I have been friends ever since this day. That was 12 years ago, right? And she stands up, and she's highly respected in the legal industry, right? And has played along and learned how to speak man, and, adapted to all the norms, and like exhausted herself doing all the code switching to get to that partner level, and has never said this before, and decides to say it for the first time in a room of about 300 men. She stands up and she's like, it feels like, I don't know what happened, but ever since I turned 50, I just started bringing all of me. And she said, it felt like me and all the other women in this firm, we just like showed up at the soccer field on Saturdays, tied our right arm and our right leg behind us, and learned how to play soccer with our left side, our less dominant side. We just learned how to play the game. And it was about a year ago or so that I just decided, no, you're playing soccer with both feet, right? And I'll never forget this moment. Like, she was so raw, so honest. And one of the panelists up there was deeply moved by her story. He had tears in his eyes, and he grabbed the mic and he's like, wow. He said, all these years I've worked with you, like, you are one of the most stellar people I know. I don't even know I've learned so much from you. Like, I had no idea that you were containing yourself, changing yourself, adapting yourself, working
Right.
this hard to filter yourself.
Right.
And anyway, it was just a beautiful moment, right? But this is it. It's like so often we get hired because we bring a different thing to the table.
Yeah.
But then you bring that different thing to the table and you get judged for it. You don't get promoted for it. You get criticized for it. You get dinged in your review for it.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's effective.
Yeah.
That thing.
Well, again, the research shows that if you have diversity in leadership or diversity within your company, you make better business decisions because people are coming with a different vantage point. They're looking at the same problem in a different way. And there's no better articulation of this that I've seen. And I'll put a link in the show notes to the episode where I interviewed the founder of this company, but they developed a toy called the empathy toy, and they use it when they're facilitating with groups. And essentially what it is that you have a picture of what a finished product looks like, made up of all these different pieces of different colors and different shapes. And I did this virtually because it was the pandemic, but they do it in person. So I don't know how they do it in person, but virtually what happened was everyone in the call, there was quite a few of us. We got a different personal version of what we saw the finished product to look like. And then there was one person who had, I think they had the actual pieces in front of them physically, in completely disassembled. And the goal was the group had to help this person put together the item as it was supposed to, quote unquote, look. The problem with that is everyone was looking at a different side of it. So what we ended up discovering was how to work together, given our different vantage points, to accomplish the goal. And I will never forget the moment where, and it's just brought the whole value of diversity home in such a stark way, right? So I'm looking at my picture, and I'm looking at a picture with all these different shapes. And then the person putting the puzzle together says, well, where am I supposed to put the yellow piece? And I'm like, there is no yellow piece. I can't see a yellow piece. Someone else pipes up, oh, I see the yellow piece in my version. You need to put it next to the purple. And then we started realizing, okay, who can see the purple? Who can see the red? Who can see? But we all couldn't see the same colors and shapes in our own versions.
Yes.
So sorry for the long-winded story, but I was so impacted by that experience of like, this is what we mean. When we talk about diversity, we don't talk about lowering the standards or letting people in who are just unqualified. We're talking about welcoming more perspectives to the table so we more quickly solve problems and get results.
Yes. And Maria, I'm glad you told this story because I couldn't help but think all the way through it that what this world would be if, especially in this online environment, we're in the middle of this firestorm where people only see what the algorithms deliver them and they get more mired in their own point of view. That empathy toy, as you're calling it, I think, gosh, if we could only put it in the hands of every human right now.
Totally. I will put a link to her episode in the show notes because it was amazing. What you're saying is just reminding me of that when we hire people for the skills they bring, we want them to bring those skills. And I spoke to Claude Silver a few years ago, and I'm actually going to get the chance to talk to her again soon. But she talked about the fact that in her own company, she's the chief heart officer at VaynerX, Gary Vaynerchuk's company. And she talked about the fact that there's a lot of people, young people that come in and they're like, but I want to be like Gary. I want to run as hard as him and go as hard as him and work all the time. And I remember her telling me, I tell them, we don't want you to be Gary. We already have a Gary. We hired you to be who you are.
That's
and
right.
Bring your skills and your talent to the table. So don't try to be someone you're not. Be who you are. That's why you're here.
You know what else you should put in your show notes is the documentary about Jacinda Ardern.
Oh yeah. She's in my
called
book.
Prime Minister, because I've never seen a more beautiful movie about that, about bringing you to the table. Because just one story that really touched me, and by the way, my daughter and all of her friends will be having movie night with me to watch this movie, because what I want to instill in them is how effective you can be by being your authentic leadership self, and how much we benefit as a world when more femininity comes into leadership. And I say it that way because historically feminine traits labeled as feminine can appear in any body, any human, right? Not just women.
Right. But everyone has masculine and feminine traits.
That's right. But she displays it so beautifully. And she talks about how when she was elected initially to the parliament, she went to this tough as nails kind of guy who's like well-respected politician, edgy, fierce, direct, all this stuff. And she said, I'm going to need some tips on how to have a thicker skin, on how to show up more fierce like that or bold, whatever word she used. And he said, no. They hired you. They voted for you.
Yes.
So just like Gary, we already have a Gary. It's like the parliament already had a whoever his name was, right?
Yeah.
And so, but then when she becomes prime minister, you really see how, I mean, I was so deeply touched by this movie because she is tender. She is confident. There are moments she uses the F-bomb. There are other moments where she's deeply analyzing something in her pajamas on our living room floor. There's other moments where she's got tears in her eyes, the way she's meeting. And by the way, empathy. I mean,
I know her stories in the book. Yeah.
Her story is
amazing.
Incredible. Yeah. How she met with the Muslim community after the horrific shootings in Christchurch and how she got gun reform passed in 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. And yes, I know it's a smaller country, but it's like, I don't think anyone could watch that movie and not say, we need more women in charge.
Yeah. Yeah. So I know you are, you're working on a book right now.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about the book.
Yes,
it's not out yet, but I know you're working on it. So tell us a little bit about that and maybe share some sneak peek lessons with us from it.
Okay. Well, you might have to just stop me from going on and on because I think this is a book that's going to meet the moment. I think it's really needed. And if there are any agents or publishers listening, please send them my way. But here it is. Basically, I'm a mom and I have a mom. And this book is about the generational updating of our operating systems from one generation of women to the next. But told through story, told through just very real stories. I call it the mind fuckery of motherhood, right? The mind fuckery of like it's loud in here. Most women will absolutely resonate with this, right? It's loud in this head of ours, right? We think and we overthink and we contemplate a lot of things. And so much of that is conditioning, right? And my mom came from a generation where, she was made to wear lacy dresses and play with certain people and not other people and be a polite little girl, She raised us to be much tougher and independent and just incredible. What she had to learn to be a different kind of mother than she had. And also the empathy and forgiveness and just acceptance of the mother she had, right? Then when I became a mom, I had struggled with so many different types of things. Like as much as my early life was marked with some pretty incredible adventures, confidence, becoming an outdoor wilderness leader when I was almost always the only woman with so many men all the time, my whole life, right? But I struggled deeply with things like body image, diet culture, passed down from my mom, and things like not speaking up, right? Like we teach a whole generation of women be strong, you're capable of anything, be resilient. What we aren't teaching women is no, don't put up with that shit. Right? Like there are strategic ways to not just be like, I'm strong. Instead, it's like, okay, so then your daughter is just going to need to also be strong instead of slowly but surely shifting the system. So anyway, the book it's light at times, it's funny, it's touching at times, it's deeply fierce and uncomfortable at times. One chapter I write about the day when my daughter was 8 and she said to me, Mom, why is Dad's no more powerful than your yes?
Wow.
Yeah. Or the day that she came home from school in high school years later and asked me in a fit of rage, honestly, marches up the stairs. I'm in the bathroom, like brushing my teeth or something. And she's like, Mom, can you just tell me why is it not okay to use any kind of racial slur? Like people know, like you'd be canceled for that. That is totally unacceptable, totally inappropriate in this day and age. But why is it that at my school, people still say things like bitch, cunt, hoe, whore on the daily. And I was like, what? First of all, okay, this is like mainstream manosphere kind of shit. This is system. This is not any one boy is this bad kid. These are like some of her friends. These are kids I've known since they were 2. These are kids I know how their parents talk at home. These are kids that are hearing this stuff online, right? And so some parents will say, like, in fact, true story, she finally stood up to a couple of her friends and did it very imperfectly, but stood up, and I was proud as hell of her for that. And the mom of those 2 boys said to me, well, it's just, sometimes she has this like demanding energy. Like she could have probably addressed this better. Was she wrong? No. She's not wrong, but are you actually fucking kidding me right now?
Yeah.
That's what you're going to focus on?
That's the takeaway?
Delivered the message, not what your kids said to deserve the like lashing that they got. Verbal lashing, let's be clear. But it's like, so anyway, this is a story. These are kind of some of the fiercer parts, right? These are some of the awakening parts. These are some of the times where, like, earlier in motherhood, I would gaslight myself. I would feel guilty about things. If I ever was less than perfect on something, I would just cycle and spin and beat myself up over it. And it's like this, it's basically a story of growing up together, right? Like, he grew up. My mom was growing up. I was growing up. She was growing up. Like, we all have been so close through these generational transfers that we talk about this stuff out loud frequently, right? Yeah. So the book is really meant to just be, it's not a teaching book. It's not a self-help book. It's a memoir about how we grew together through motherhood, through business, through travel, and through cancer. And it's just, my daughter's amazing. Like,
I love this so much.
Updated her operating system in ways that were so important. I raised a girl who likes herself.
Yeah.
And I raised a girl who doesn't mind fuck herself constantly. And I'm really proud of that.
Yeah. Well, you should be. I am constantly torn between I'm doing a horrible job and I'm doing a good job, because my son's at an age where he doesn't want to hear about, I don't want to hear about you going to that rally. I don't want to hear about this, or, I don't understand. And it was really interesting. A year or so ago, he asked me this question very thoughtfully. And he said, Mom, why is it today that when girls do something, everyone thinks it's like amazing and awesome? And like, he's seeing all the celebration of women that's finally happening. Right. And he's like, but if like I do the same thing, it's no big deal. It was like the after effect of what happens to boys. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, how do I respond to this? And I said, well, it doesn't diminish you and what you're doing, but I get it. I get why you might think that. He's like, when girls speak out, it's like this amazing thing. And if I speak out, I get in trouble at school. Like it was that kind of thing. And I said, it's just that you have to understand that there's been a history of women not being able to say those things or do those things, or have the sports team go to success, or, get the promotion or get the job or get elected. And it was just, he couldn't wrap his little brain around it at that age, but it was just an interesting takeaway. And that's where some of the conditioning, I know you've talked about this online, of this snapback to, sexism and misogyny. My answer may have been imperfect, but it was important because in a different family, you could have had a dad who said, yeah, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous that women get to do whatever they want to do now. And, in my day, they knew their place. I mean, you can see how that same question could happen in millions of homes.
Yes.
And it's a valid perspective. It's his experience, right? And he was asking it with all innocence and no malice, but how we handle that generational education, that generational, like how we answer those questions for our kids. It reminds me of when he was like 3 or 4 years old, and he's in the back of the car and he asks a question about a kid at his daycare. And he said, why does so-and-so have 2 moms? And I said, well, families come in all shapes and sizes. I was like, our family has a mom and a dad. Other families have 2 moms. Some families have 2 dads. Some families have 1 dad or 1 mom. It doesn't make it less of a family. And he goes, okay, 30 seconds.
Very matter of fact. That's
30
it.
seconds but again, in my mind, I was like, ooh, what if a kid asks that question of a parent who says it's wrong, it's an abomination, but that's how quickly we can help them be good people and future good leaders, or how
Yes.
quickly we can turn them into racists, misogynists,
Yes.
bigots, all the things. It's 30 seconds.
Yes. Well, and
that frightens me. Like,
absolutely. Well, and you're not wrong. I mean,
Yeah.
this is what is happening, right? Everything you just painted is exactly how it's going. Those conversations are unfolding in homes across the United States and everywhere else in thousands and millions of different ways. But your story reminds me of a couple things. One, my daughter, again, right? She's just, I swear, she's had a few goes around the planet before this one, because she just was kind of born with this like deeper wisdom.
She's an old soul. Yeah.
She's kind of yeah, exactly. But I had a sticker when she was little on my water bottle that said "Girls Rock," or maybe she had it. Maybe someone gave it to her at school or something. And one day she picks up her water bottle and she said, "Well, this sticker, Girls Rock, like, I mean, we don't have stickers that say Boys Rock. I mean, isn't this kind of unfair?" And I said to her, pretty much same explanation. I said, it's a really good point. I said, boys also rock. Absolutely. I said, the reason the culture swung the pendulum over here to really praising girls is because, believe it or not, like, this is the world you live in. But for so long, like, and even now, there are ways in which women are oppressed. Oppression means, I explained to a 7-year-old what oppression means, and I've explained it to my son many times and through multiple lenses since. But that's it. I said, I can't wait until we no longer need a sticker that says "Girls Rock" to show girls what they're capable of. But it is also true that what we've forgotten is that in this generation where we're teaching generations, where we've now taught women, do anything, you can be anything, you're amazing, you can be a teacher or a stay-at-home mom or a scientist, you can care about money or not, you can be joining the Peace Corps, you can get married or not, you can love women or men. I mean, we've given women, you can be bold and confident and self-assured, you can also be tender and warm and kind and nurturing. We've painted this entire rainbow of options for girls and women. And I mean, I got to be honest about this. Like, this has been a slow awakening for me as well, as like a fierce advocate for women over the last probably 3 years, is when, as my own son, he's 15 now, but as he's grown up, really realizing, wait a second, this is even before all the data was coming out. I was like, hold on. Like, I have a boy who is all the things. He's kind and he's warm and he's tender and he's so loving and he's so empathetic. And he's also, can be stoic and they
also can be dicks. Like,
yeah, and he can be, oh my God, I tell him all the time, like, you are truly the most stubborn human being that I've ever met, right? Yeah. But he's all the things too. And so forever I've been trying to teach him and reward him. I give him compliments all the time on all the things that he is. Like, Ben, you give the best hugs. Ben, you really, like, you might not say a lot of words sometimes, but I see you seeing everything. I see how much you are loving on Dad. Like, he'll walk around the dinner table when he can tell my husband's had a hard day and just wrap his arms around the back of his shoulders. We call it the table hugs. He's like famous for it. Like, he can just feel if someone needs some extra love, right?
Yeah.
But he is on this point of like, how are we teaching these boys? It's like the conversations we have over here, I might even take it a step further. So like what men are being, some indoctrination that's happening online is like, I'm so sick of women being ragey against men. I'm so sick of women complaining, blah, 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 blah. What I say to Ben is, here's the reality. Women, not all of them, but many of them, like the data shows, 1 in 3 women are going to be sexually assaulted, sexually abused, raped, molested, etc. A very high percentage of women are going to be interrupted, dismissed. They're going to be afraid when they walk down a dark street. They're going to have horrible things said to them by men and boys. They're going to have catcalling out windows of cars. And what's going to happen is that over time, they're going to build up this like resentment, for lack of a better word, about that. And you might be in a situation sometime where you hear where a woman like goes off on you. Like, you said something innocent. You had one intention but it landed with a really different impact.
Mm-hmm.
And everything in your body is going to want to defend. You're going to want to say, not me, I'm one of the good ones. Whoa, 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 that's not what I meant. Why are you overreacting? And bud, you're not wrong to feel that way, but here's what you're going to have to strap in for.
Mm-hmm.
You are going to have to strap in for female rage. I literally tell them that. I'm like, it isn't even about you.
Yeah.
But you have a choice when you're in the face of it. You can lean in and be like, whoa, like, tell me more. I can see that really hit you wrong. You can be curious with your girlfriends and girlfriends.
Mm-hmm.
You can say like, whoa, this seems like it has some history. Like, what's going on? You can be curious. You can show empathy. Or you can be one of those guys who backs up and is like, Jesus.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Right.
And it's like, we need more men who realize that our reactions to them, like, I'm a behavioral scientist, right? So
right.
we learn that when you're working with a person and when it's hysterical, it's historical.
Mm-hmm.
So if you get a hysterical reaction, it's historical. And the way to think about it is like, there's all these other people in the room. There's all these other people in the room. They're invisible, but it's like all these experiences, all these people, all the times this or that happened. Now I say something and it triggers what you just said, Mitch, or what you just said, Ben. It sounds a whole lot like all these other bozos back here. And I'm done, right? Like everyone reaches
that was the straw
point.
That broke the camel's back, as they say.
Yeah. And it's like, if we want our young men to be equipped to be great friends, great partners, great roommates, great professionals, we have to equip them with understanding why that's happening, because what I really worry about and spend a lot of time thinking about right now is the fact that the divisions are getting deeper. We're not coming together. We're getting further apart. You see all the reels online about, you see the data on gray divorce. More and more women are leaving after the age of 50 when they've had enough. You see the data on younger women saying, marriage is not for me. And you see then the reaction to that over here in the far extreme, like the Nick Fuentes, the Andrew Tates, the Dr. K, who was recently on Diary of a CEO. Like, you see these guys over here saying, kind of doubling down and saying, women, it's the women's problem. Like, they've just lost their minds. Their expectations are just too high. They're this, they're that. So anyway, maybe we got off topic, but I think it's incredibly important for us, anyone who's listening, who's a parent, to realize that we got to be having these conversations with our kids. And also to realize that if we are coming here through the professional lens, that this behavior is also showing up in our workplaces.
Well, this is where you get to it.
The time.
Yeah. And I love that quote of the hysterical is the historical, because these people ultimately enter the workforce. They become community leaders. They become political leaders.
Yes.
Like, even if you don't have kids,
the
way these conversations are going down impacts you as a citizen of your country or a citizen of the world, right? Because those people are going to be the leaders. They're going to be the doctors, the administrators, the principals, the CEOs, the whatever, right? The head of the PTA, they're going to be the head of the school board, all of these things. And so, when we talk about improving leadership, this is why in both of my books at the end, I talk about people that are working with young people on how to flex and build that empathy muscle from the start. So that it just becomes part of their operating system. And that doesn't mean that adults have no hope, because you can actually learn to build that muscle that has atrophied. It just has to be more of an intentional choice that I'm going to show up in a different way. I'm going to lead in a different way. I'm going to buck the trend of what society says I should be as a male leader or I should be as a female leader. And you told a story earlier that just reminded me of another story I wanted to share with you, which was so profound. Early on in my empathy work, one of the first things I did was I spoke at a tech sales kickoff. So we're talking like massive dude bros, right, in the audience. And the talk resonated with the group. And I had one guy come up to me after and said, thank you for talking about this, because I often feel like I have to come to work and be someone I'm not, because that's how they're judging my success. but I can find success operating in a different way. And I was like, yes, you can. I showed you the data and I shared the strategies with you. Right. And it was just so moving for me. It was just like a quick interaction, but the fact that he came over, he made sure nobody else was there. You know what I mean? It was just the fact that we have male leaders. I actually feel like, I know I'm rambling a little bit, this idea of expectations of leadership and this old leadership paradigm of power over versus partner with.
Yes.
Has not been good for anybody. And it hasn't been good for men who have to hide parts of themselves in order to fit into that mold. We are, to your point about, the palette that you paint, that we paint for our young girls now, we need to paint that palette as equally for boys. Hey, even if you're a 42-year-old male CEO, you still have options. You're just going to have to do a little bit more work at the gym, but there's still an option for you to operate in a different way. And what I always love to say is the paradigms of leadership and the paradigms of what is strength or what is masculine or what is feminine, those are human constructs. They're not laws of physics. So we can decide we want to change the definition.
Yes.
Or
we can decide any day that we want to embody more of one or the other, or turn the dials down and up on one or the other.
Exactly.
But, back to this is so good. So let's just paint the picture here from from dining room table to boardroom table.
Yeah.
Okay. So your young son who asked that question.
I know. I wish he asked more questions like that now. He doesn't anymore, but he used to ask more questions like that.
Yeah. Well, okay. But hopefully all of us are having those conversations around the dinner table that, but okay. In fact, one of those recently, I was having a rough day because of an online hate comment I got, and I will show my son my sadness. I will cry and I'll be like, I am having a really hard time. This really hurts, and give him the chance to have the empathy, to give him the chance to hug me. Mom, what happened? Tell him the story. And I think sometimes we think as parents that it's about teaching them a thing, when really it's just showing up with all the beauty and all the pain and all the joy and all the advocacy that you contain, right? And I'm so grateful to this guy, Jim, I coached years and years ago, it was way before ERGs were all the rage. And he was the male executive sponsor for the women's ERG at this tech company. And one day I was coaching him on totally different stuff, about the business and his leadership. But I said, Jim, why do you care this much? This isn't me being skeptical. It's me being deeply curious about why, I don't see a lot of other men in this role, caring so much. And he said, because my mom worked for the post office and she would come home, and I can't tell you, Mitch, how many tears I saw my mom cry at the table. She was told, you should be home with your kids. She was treated poorly. She was underpaid, underpromoted. And I hated that. I hated knowing that was what my mom went through. Right. And so that empathy we have to give our kids a chance to see our true empathy, not just through the lens of teaching them who we want them to be, but helping them just see and observe the impact that the current world has on us. Right.
Yeah.
But that little boy, your 4-year-old, and at that time, 13-year-old. Yeah. At the time, those are the guys that are going to grow up, and they're going to be in the coffee room or, one-on-one meeting where someone at work says something to the effect of, it doesn't even seem fair that there's a women's ERG. Okay. Where's the men's ERG? And our boys are going to be equipped to say, well, you know what? Men are important. Of course. And I would be lying if I didn't feel that way sometimes, left out or kind of what about me? But at the same time, guys, we got to realize there's this history of oppression. There's this thing called oppression, right? We are raising boys who will be able to identify victim stance, identify how they want to show up in that moment, right? And not hopefully be the generation of men we currently have, which thinks by and large that it's enough to just not participate in the misogyny, but instead have boys who actually resist the temptation to jump on board or think it's enough to just stay quiet amongst those kinds of comments,
Right.
So, but these are the comments. I have 1,000 stories from my own life and all of my clients about the kinds of things that men and women too, have said to them, because misogyny is in all of us, not just men. It's not men against women. It's we've all been marinating in a culture, the same culture, which means we adopt the same messages.
Yeah.
But, I mean, we know the data, motherhood penalty, fatherhood reward. We know the data on how our behaviors show up so differently or perceived so differently.
Well, and to your point, it's impacted everybody. I mean, I get asked the question a lot in my talks where it's like, are women better at empathy? And I don't do the research from a gender lens. There's other people that do a great job of that. Carol Vallone Mitchell is one of them who does a lot of research on women leaders and what makes them successful. But I say, look, from my own personal experience, first of all, empathy is a human trait. We're all innately born with it, barring certain psychopathies. And so it's a matter of conditioning and environment.
Yeah.
And yes, there's neurodiversity aspects to it as well. But for some people, the muscle stays strong because of environments that they're in and what they've been taught and rewarded for and what's been celebrated and modeled, to your point. Other people, not so much. And you could take that to the workplace too. Some people are traumatized by workplaces that they've been in, and other people have been in amazingly supportive and thriving workplaces where it's easier, quote unquote, easier to be empathetic.
Yes.
What I say is, look, women don't have a lock on this because two of my worst toxic, psychologically abusive bosses were women.
Yep.
And my most empathetic leader was a man. So you don't get off the hook because of your gender on this. This is a human trait that we all can develop. And you just need to decide if that's the kind of person and if that's the kind of leader you want to be. Because if you make that decision, yes, it is. There are people like you, there are people like me, there are many, many other people who can help you get there. And there's strategies and tools you can put in place to build that muscle, just like hiring a personal coach in the gym.
Yes.
Right. So I shy away from the gender conversation about empathy in particular. And just little fun fact, when I was shopping my first book around to different agents, I had an agent in New York who was very interested, but the Me Too movement was going on at the time. And so she was all about, what do the publishers want? What do the publishers want? And she said, if you make the book, instead of empathy being a competitive advantage, can you make the book about feminine traits being a competitive advantage? And I said, no, because it wasn't the book I wanted to write. I don't want to let it, the book is for men and women leaders and every bit of the spectrum in between. Right.
By the way, that book about the advantages of feminine characteristics has been written. John Gersma.
Yeah.
Called The Athena Doctrine. He and another man went all around the world. And here's where it is gendered, I think. But I understand what you're saying. Yeah. And I agree with it. And what they did is they used kind of popular belief, right? So what they did first is they went around to all these countries and they asked the question, what is needed in our world, in our leaders today? From all, okay. So then they coded all that. What were the top 25 responses in terms of qualities and characteristics needed in our leaders today? And then they took that list. That was 64, based on 64,000 respondents across, I think it was 132 countries. Don't quote me on that.
Okay.
And then they took that list and they brought it over here to this other subject group. And they said, we simply want you to tag these characteristics, masculine or feminine. And then they mapped them together. And it turns out that 9 out of the top, what was it? I have a slide on this somewhere in my repertoire, but it's like, I think it was like 9 were in the feminine category, 5 were in the more masculine category. Again, what I love about this, it doesn't say men and women. It says masculine and feminine.
Right.
And anyone can contain either. Right. But the fact is that if you look at, if you observe environments, it turns out men really are more likely to have the masculine traits in excess or in higher quantities. Women are more likely to have the feminine ones. But this is where the narrative has to shift. It's like, just like you said a minute ago, you're not off the hook on this. None of us are off the hook on learning all the skills, right? Some of the masculine ones were things like assertive, confident, decisive, or some that I remember.
And those are, decisiveness is a pillar of being an empathetic and effective leader, no matter what gender you are. Yeah,
absolutely. And over here were things like collaborative, consultative, empath. I think empathy might have been on there. relational, more kind of, and I've seen this in real time. I've had a number of women I've coached where when I do that same 360 process I talked about earlier,
Yeah.
some of the key feedback I often get is particularly from men who work with this woman who's up here at this level. The common themes over 20 years of doing this that I would say I hear more than anything else is she cares too much, like she consults too many people is one, like not decisive enough is two, goes to bat too hard for her team at the expense of like moving faster for the business. These are some of the things I hear, right? And maybe probably the fourth and also very popular is some version of, we'll all be heading in a direction and then she'll be the one in the room that says, wait, hold on. Have we considered the impacts on this and this and this and this? Yeah. And it slows us down as opposed to thank God for her. Right.
Right.
And so that one on, consulting too many people. I mean, many women I've worked with would call that their superpower. Right. So again, it goes back to, is it effective? Right. Did you get the result? Which is why when I work with women leaders and they get that kind of feedback, I help them change the narrative around that to be results focused. So if they're getting feedback that's like, you really need to be more decisive or you really need to move faster, for them to be able to advocate for, let me let you in on a little something. These partner teams over here, when I came into this role, were burning dumpster fire because the command and control wasn't working. Right. I now have built really trusting relationships with team A, B, C. It took a little longer, but look how aligned we are now. We're on track or we hit that goal. So it's not, oh, you're right, boss. Gotta make the call faster and become autocratic. Right. It's believe enough in your own strengths and capabilities and superpowers that you know how to sell them. Yes. Right? Yes. Exactly. That you know how to sell them. Because if you can come back to the business case for whatever it is you're doing or however it is you're showing up, you have a much higher chance of being rewarded for those behaviors as opposed to docked for them. Exactly. Oh my God, I love that. What a great story, because I think that is so important on how we're positioning things. Because what I see sometimes is I see women leaders who are collaborative and are, maybe they're not getting ahead, or maybe they read a book about leadership written by a man 30 years ago. And sometimes I see them swinging the opposite way just to prove credibility, just to prove worthiness. And that's where with maturity and years distance, I can be a little kinder on those two female leaders, because I think that their methods were what they thought they needed to do to survive. I doubt they were that way with their families, with their kids, with their partners. Like the ability to be cruel was so pervasive with these two. And I know it was now I know through more mature eyes, it was never about us. It was about their own insecurities, their own fears, this is the way I have to lead. Otherwise, no one will take me seriously. I love so much that you said that. Like, I feel so touched by that story. That grace, empathy, forgiveness, perspective that you just brought to that is beautiful. Honestly, I have chills because I want more of that, please, in the world. Because it's like so often that thing you said that so many of us say, oh, well, actually, my worst boss was a woman. And what we don't say next is the part you just said. But I understand why. Yeah. And part. It's like, we can be so hard on each other as women. And I am so craving an environment where we have more love and grace and forgiveness for each other. We have to leave. We have to hold a boundary. We have to move on if we're in that situation, just like you did, years later, being able to say it in the way you said it. I'm just so touched by that. I appreciate that, because I also have to confess that about 10 years ago, my son was young, it was like 11 years ago or so, I did see one of those bosses in a very large superstore, and my husband and I both hid. Hey, you know what? Like, no shame, whatever girl. You got to do to survive, right? Whatever you have to do. I know. Nobody said you've got to face that person. Nope. Nobody said that's a rule. I'm like,
Mitch, before you call me a martyr, like, let me just cop to this. I could talk to you all day long, and I probably will at some point, but I have loved this very quirky, unique episode of us just talking about leadership and talking about social norms and talking about gender expectations and all of it. So, and I love that usually I'm featuring people who are promoting their finished book. And I love that this is unique in that we are getting a sneak peek into a book that I know will see the light of day, and we will be holding it in our hands at some point very soon. Mitch, I will have all your links in the show notes. Thank you so much for sharing your insights with us. For anyone that's on the go, working out, driving, whatever, where's the best place they can connect with you and find out more about your work?
Thank you for asking. Okay, so I would say I'm just going to name one place and one thing. So one place is LinkedIn. It's a really good place to find me, get a sense of who I am, my voice, who I've worked with, that kind of thing, my writing, and send me a message if you want to be part of anything I'm doing. And now the thing. So I'm doing a few things. One, as you know, is I'm starting this thing called Storytime because it takes a long time for a book to get published. So what I'm doing is I'm reading some of my stories for anyone who wants to come. It's like a virtual reading circle on Zoom. I'm launching it in a couple of weeks. So by the time people hear this, it probably will be well underway. But the way I do that is I read a story about a real thing that centers on a topic like guilt or perfectionism or gaslighting or resentment, just to name a few that are especially common to a lot of women. And I then just simply let people talk about, like, how did this resonate? What did it bring up for you? What's your own relationship to X? Okay, so I do that on a monthly thing. I want to just build community around some of this storytelling.
And how can folks access that?
So if you go to LinkedIn, then just message me and say, Mitch, I heard about your story time. Can you send me a link to sign up for that? Because I basically just have a landing page for anyone who can just register, and then I send them the invite.
Okay, great. Wonderful.
And then the other thing, as you know, is I do He Said, She Said on Thursdays with Joe Gerstand. And we talk about the cultural, just the hottest cultural issues facing us today, from politics to the manosphere to leadership to, all sorts of things. And Joe and I both have a 15-year-old son and an 18/19-year-old daughter.
Wow.
And we both have deep expertise in culture, behavioral science, inclusion, leadership, but bring such vastly different perspectives. So that's on Thursdays.
And how can folks access that?
Same, like just
LinkedIn?
Message me, because then I can send you the landing page. You can just register yourself. Yeah.
I love it. Okay.
And by the way, the links to these things are in my bio on LinkedIn. So if someone doesn't want to have to send a specific message, they can just sign up that way.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. And I always give the PSA to everyone that if they connect with you, to personalize the note and say they heard you here, and this is specifically what they'd like to know. They'd like to know about Storytime, or they'd like to know about He Said, She Said. So
that's right. And what I'd like to know is, if someone reaches out to me, what did I say or shift in you that made you say, like, wait, I need more of that? Because you know how we need to know this stuff, right? I want to be giving value out there. I want to talk about the things that people find most valuable. So if anyone wants to even just shoot me a message to be like, that quote stuck with me, or that story stuck with me, please do.
Yeah, I love it. Well, this has been a long time coming, and I'm so honored that you've been here. Thank you for your insights. And thanks. I hope more people will connect.
Thank you so much, Maria. I just adore you. I love that you're doing this. It was so fun to chat.
And thank you, everyone, for listening to another episode of the Empathy Edge podcast. If you like what you heard, you know what to do. Please rate and review, or share it with a friend or a colleague. And until next time, please remember that cash flow, creativity, and compassion are not mutually exclusive. Take care and be kind.